Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Not bad at all, Mark. Oh, beautiful background. You had a lovely background before, but of course I'll be
Yep,
recommending the layer 1231.
absolutely.
Where are you joining us from? I can tell by your accent you're possibly not home or very early in the morning
No, I'm home and it's very early in the morning.
or late at night.
That's okay. No, very early in the morning for me. That's okay. I worked for Analysis Mason for many years.
Okay.
I used to have people in London, so I'm used to getting up very early in the morning.
Do you know Caroline Gabriel?
Yes, I do, very
Imagine,
much.
yeah. She. So
Very, very
I
well.
I tend to work with the tower side of Euromoney Telecoms more than the layer 123. So Caroline and I we know one another from Tower
Okay.
Exchange.
No, I've worked with Caroline for, geez, almost 10 years.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Um, Absolutely. Yeah, I know she was heavily involved in the in a lot of this stuff. So I'm relatively new. I've only been back to the network for a while. Was banished to BSS for about 10 years. So I'm back to the OSS world now.
Good.
Well, thanks
Uh,
for the opportunity here to give the webinar. It'll just be me today, as my email indicated, talking rather than try to go back and forth between me and PJ.
oh, so PJ can't join.
Yeah, he'll be on, but he won't be joining as a as his presenter.
Okay. And do you have some slides?
Yes, I do.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to enable your screen sharing, and yep, you should be able to get those up.
All right, let me bring those up. Just go back to the beginning here. I just going literally just going through them. This seems to be going very well
I think
virtually.
so. Yeah.
I've been to some that have not.
No,
But
I know there are. I mean one of the advantages is obviously there's a lot happening in the space, so there's no shortage of things to discuss. But yeah, it does
all
seem to be
right.
going okay.
Hopefully you see
Wonderful.
my screen now.
I do indeed. Can you just flick back and forwards a little bit?
Yeah, let me hold on. I have to bring up the right. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on here. I'm not sure what I'm seeing too many.
So all I've got is the opening slide. Nothing else is happening.
Okay, good. All right, here we go. I think I've got it now. So, so
Perfect.
here's the real slide.
Hmm.
Industry 4.0 is a major market opportunity. Is that what you see?
I do indeed. I remember Industry 3.0. We're already 4.0. 5.0 next.
Mm-hmm.
Good, good, good. Yeah.
Do I need to send these slides to anyone, or is this
It's useful often to upload them. So if you could share them with Milad, um, he'll be able to make
Oh,
sure that
sorry, share it
anybody.
with who?
Milad.
Okay, well, sure. I need to write that down. Because my brain probably isn't going to work well enough to even remember one word this morning. So,
If you've got it all fully scripted and ready to go, perhaps not the time for ad libs. And
okay,
great.
that's it. So it sounds good. So I guess you stay on and you're
Exactly.
gonna
I'm just in the background to make sure nothing dangerous happens.
make sense.
Um,
So can you see me at all? Is there a? There's not a.
yeah. So you'll be in the top right corner, just a
I
small
am in the top.
video.
Okay.
Yeah, so that people will be able to see you.
Okay. I thought that's the way it
Somewhat.
worked, but I can't see that. That's kind of odd.
Yeah, it's not quite the way it broadcasts. It appear what you see isn't quite what comes out in the broadcast,
Yeah, that's very weird.
because I'm not sure why actually, but it does format it slightly differently for viewers of it.
Yeah.
It's because
I
it's set up.
see.
This is set up as a webinar, not a meeting, and therefore
Ah.
it has some extra, slightly different functionality for people who are attendees or viewers of the stream versus you and I who are set up as panelists.
Okay, I see. Okay, let's see. So let me try and get myself set up. How's this right here?
Yeah, very clear.
I can get closer, but yeah, that's about right. Okay. Oh, it's all good. Yeah. By the way, I found the talks very good, and it's they're good. The talks are good enough so that people even if they get up early in the morning or late at night, I think are paying attention too. And I think this is going very well, very, very well.
Right, thank you. Well, I've just got to pop off for a couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll be back to let you know when to start.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Hello, yeah, sorry, my wife just got me a coffee from the cafe opposite.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
important.
what I've been. It's an important part of the actually it's much better coffee than a normal conference coffee. They're very good there, and often conference coffee doesn't quite stack up as you'd like.
So where are you physically then?
Physically, I'm in London.
Okay.
In London.
And you said conference coffee, so there's a
yeah. So no, but I've got a wonderful cafe.
I understand what you mean now.
Opposite
yes, got it. I got it. Well, I make my own coffee, but I don't go for the fancy stuff. My wife doesn't like the fancy stuff. We get cheap coffee and we should make it strong as all get out, and then she puts half and half. So. Oh, anyway, so I've also, by the way, Huawei has its analyst conference going on at the same time this week, so it's been an interesting week. Some of us are doing this sort of at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we do Huawei at 9 o'clock up until 9 o'clock at night.
That's a busy week.
It's not going as well. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, given our extensive working relationship with Huawei.
Oh yeah, and a lot of their webinars are coming from Shenzhen, and of course they have to contend with firewalls all the time. So if any glitch happens, just say the whole process is very fragile.
Yes, very much so.
All right, so I'm giving a talk here that's a little out of the norm. So I was pleased that it was chosen because it assumes that all the stuff that everybody's talked about, I think up to this point, happens, and says, okay, now what are we going to do with it?
It's more fun.
How's it going to be part of something even larger? So we'll see. We're either onto something or we're completely raving insane here, and I'm not quite sure which yet, to tell you the truth, but. Short version of this talk is if a lot of people, a lot of the major companies are going and doing their enterprise digital enablement, building their big platforms of the future, and they're handcrafting them. But not everybody can afford to build their own. So what's going to happen? And how is the majority? How are we going to democratize, in fact, the enterprise digital enablement and really get people up to Industry 4.0? The answer is somebody's going to pre-configure a lot of this crap. That's what it boils down to. And communications is going to be an important underpinning of it, but only a piece of it. And it's going to have its own set of requirements. So we'll see. We're starting to understand what those requirements are. And I know you're just listening. I'm just getting my vocal cords in order right now. How's your coffee?
Hi there, Mark. You can begin the presentation now.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, hello, everyone. This is Mark Mortensen speaking on behalf of myself and also my colleague, Paul Parker Johnson, or PJ, Parker Johnson as we call him. I'll be the only presenter today, but just imagine that PJ is sitting next to me over my left shoulder, looking on, I hope, saying that this is a good presentation and that it meets the needs also of the cloud. I'm kind of a telecom guy, and although PJ started as the telecom guy too, he's really become more of a cloud person over the last decade. So what we've done is we've taken some of the viewpoint here of the cloud and of communication side, put it together and said, let's assume that all of the things that we have done, we've been talking about this week, about autonomous networks, about automation of the communications intelligent fabric here, and said, let's say that happens. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to use this as part of overall intelligent composable fabric, as we call it, for digital enterprise enablement? So, okay, lots of jargon words. So what are we talking about here? What we're talking about is moving on to Industry 4.0. We know from work by McKinsey and others that Industry 4.0 and the move to these digital enterprises is going to create about $3.7 trillion in value, which is a tremendous amount. The market itself for digital enterprise systems is estimated to be about $250 billion in 2026. What are we talking about there? We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about manufacturing, transportation, logistics, and many other industries here. We know that many of these companies in these areas are already going through their digital transformation. They're the large ones. They're the ones that have the large IT shops or can afford a tremendous amount of money that's necessary to build their new platform of the future. And we'll talk about platforms in a minute. That involve communication platforms, but that's only a piece of it. So they're going and building all these themselves, which is wonderful. But what are the rest of us going to do? What are the rest of us going to do who aren't going to be able to afford to build those digital platforms? Someone is going to come along, and we'll talk about who. Maybe the operators, maybe the web scalers, maybe the systems integrators, maybe some of the major IT players, or some combination of those, and build this next overall fabric for enterprise digital enablement for the majority of the market. While they're doing this, they're going to be involved in creating a lot of the new, or using a lot of the new technologies that are shown on the left-hand side here. And you can see things like cloud computing, where 90% of the people have said by 2025, they intend to use cloud computing. I wonder what the other 10% are doing. I guess maybe they're cutting hair. But all the way down to people like quantum computing, we're still talking about 25–30% of the people think quantum computing, in fact, is going to be useful to them. So a tremendous number of new technologies that are necessary here to go into this new enterprise 4.0. So as they're creating these digital enterprises, they're going to be four characteristics, as you can see on the left-hand side. Agility. What we're after here is enterprise agility. We've heard the word used a lot for the communications infrastructure. The communications providers need to be highly agile. They need to be able to change their business processes. They need to be able to change their offerings, especially very, very quickly. And exactly the same thing can be said for each one of the digital enterprise companies of the future, be it healthcare or transportation, anyone. It's agility that they're after. Why agility? Because they expect fast-changing market conditions. I hope we don't have another fast-changing market condition like we did early last year, but we're going to. It's not going to be another pandemic, God willing, but it's going to be something. There are going to be some major changes and major disruptions coming, and these companies know that they're going to need to be able to adapt to them. In order to do this, they were trying to create what's called a composable business. So if you read the literature here about composable businesses, for you techie people, it basically means take your business, break it into microservices, if you will, break it into organizational units that have an individual KPI, an individual mission. Have the company be all these little individual units that can be individually changed and can be composed and put together in new ways, so that you can take your entire business and make it a composable business. We know that this is going to be empowered also by an AI factory. We understand that AI is going to be everything, and it's going to be more of a platform-based business for almost everyone. What do we mean by platform-based business? We mean, of course, a business that where the machines are running the day-to-day operations, the moment-by-moment operations. The people are on the outside of this process. They're standing out there watching what's going on with the enterprise, making sure the right things are happening, and changing the policies, making sure the AIs are working. They're doing the governance job, and they're doing the configuration job of the business itself from the outside, rather than being intrinsically involved at each step of the process for the business. By the way, my favorite saying is, you have a platform-based business if for some reason no one comes to work that day and the customers still can buy things and they can still get things. That's and the business keeps working. It just doesn't change that day. That's a platform-based business. Okay, in order to get these digital enterprises here that have all these wonderful characteristics is going to require some digital technologies. And we talked about that in just the last slide there, from AI, machine learning, to database, including big data, as well as blockchain and other technologies here. Lots of different devices, usually connected by an Internet of Things we've talked about this week, analytics, security, et cetera, et cetera. And it's going to require digital infrastructure. So we're talking about having this digital infrastructure that's all AI-powered analytics and process automation. We're talking about an operational technology being brought in here, or OT. Some might say that Industry 4.0 is when IT meets OT, where operational technology, of course, is the technology that's used in the shop floor or in those other, I call it blue-collar operations of the business itself. And it's all built on communications infrastructure, which itself is all built on computing, storage, and processing infrastructure. This new infrastructure itself needs to be highly composable, needs to be highly customizable, and highly adaptable, as we've talked about, I think, tremendously. So all the things we've talked about here about the communications is going to be true for the rest of it. So what do I mean the rest of it? Well, we'd like to talk about an intelligent composable fabric, or ICF, because we believe that the majority of the things that are not industry specific are going to be presented as an overall fabric that can be configured to support enterprise digital enablement platform for multiple industries, as shown here. So we've got basically all those industries, like transportation, logistics, healthcare, and manufacturing are the three that we're focusing on right now, but there's many others, financial and energy and others. These industries here are going to have some industry-specific applications, very, very highly specialized applications that are going to be just for them. And healthcare, a tremendous area of focus right now, of course, is in things like remote patient monitoring, which we've all probably been involved in somehow, of remote patient interaction with our healthcare providers. And that requires some specialized equipment, some specialized software there. But underneath all that industry-specific stuff is going to be a bunch of stuff, a part of the ICF, a generic software platform that's going to be applicable to multiple industries. And it's that ICF that is going to be intelligent. It's going to be able to automate the processes. It's composable. It's made of a set of components that can be assembled. And it's a fabric, really, with pre-integrated subsystems that can be really configured well. So what's inside of that? There's a more formal definition on the bottom, but I'm not going to read that. You can take a look at that now or later on. But it's built out of a couple of different main components. It has some digital platform components, which you can see kind of at the top of the purple. Here, you're talking about sets of generic cross-industry software components, things that are useful in lots of different places. IoT platform is an example, a generalized system that allows the management of the Internet of Things devices, that brings in all the data and provides that data processing and provides it to applications later on, as well as things for the security and the health of the whole IoT system itself. We're going to find blockchain
Apologies, Mark. We seem to have a slight audio problem on your side. Fortunately, we can't hear you. It might be worth just quickly dropping off and dropping back on again. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Mark will be back with us momentarily.
Hi, this is Mark Mortensen. Can you hear me again?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, that's wonderful. Let me share my screen again. Give me one moment, please. Okay, can you hear me and can you see me? Can you see this?
You can indeed, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. All right, so while I've been gone, the whole ICF concept, I think, has already been moving forward because we have digital platform components here that are generic cross-industry things. We have the fabrics underneath there, the communications fabric and the compute and storage fabric. With that compute and storage fabric, of course, supporting not only all of the digital platform components, the industry-specific applications, but also being the underpinnings for much of the data center communications and the network communications, as we know. So what do we do now, and how do we make this actually happen then? Let's take a look at the infrastructure components here. There's a network communications piece of this and a data center communications. I won't go through all the list. The network communications cloud is all the pieces that we've been talking about here today, from public, private 5G through access connectivity of things like fiber or cable companies using DOCSIS. The data center communications and also the compute and storage cloud are public clouds, private clouds, MEC, all of these different pieces, as well as down to the container software platforms. So you end up with this compute and storage cloud, you end up with this data center and this network, which itself are all integrated together and providing, if you will, an overall communications and compute and storage cloud in some ways for all the rest of the pieces. Even more interesting to me is when you start adding those digital platform functional components. Here's some examples of these things. We've been going through an analysis here at ACG in order to figure out what are those digital platform functional components. So we've been doing taking a look at these industries, looking at use cases, and decomposing these use cases into the different technologies that are underpinning them, and then saying, okay, if we see many of these same technologies in the same area, in different industries, we'll put them on our list of digital platform functional components and start understanding that. We find that there's three main pieces of information here, or main categories. The functional components themselves, that are from data lakes for mass storage down to AI wrangling functions, watching over the AIs and making sure that they're working, deciding if they really need to be updated or not, or if whether training drift is happening, with everything in between. And we've talked about a lot of those this week. There's, of course, a lot of the ecosystem enablement components necessary in in the communications industry. We call these BSS, or business support-like functions, portals that go to their customers or other ecosystem partners, digital marketplace, of course, for offering goods, billing and settlements, kind of very highly generic things. And people like Oracle understand this, by the way. They have all these components that are being used cross-industry. In fact, most of the people who are providing these BSS functions to communications companies have transcended communications companies and are providing exactly the same thing to multiple industries right now. We're already seeing that happening. And then, of course, the third category is the platform management, managing the platform itself. The ICF platform management components for the asset tracking for the digital platforms, the construction manager. I like to think of it as a 3D printer. What we're going to want to do is to take all these intelligent composable fabric of compute, storage, communications, and the platform components, and put it into the digital printer. Have a system that configures all of these components into a fabric for a particular company in a particular industry. Again, that's the democratization of this. So what are we talking about with all of this? The ICF. So what is it then? Well, one can think of it as a reference model. And actually, as we were doing a lot of this work, a lot of us were looking at it at first and thinking about, well, maybe what we have here is a reference model. It's saying, these are the piece parts that are going to be needed. These are the piece parts that could be put on the table, and a systems integrator could come in and put these piece parts together. That's what we're seeing happening today, of course. That's what we're seeing the major transportation companies are doing, the major manufacturing companies are doing. And then their vendors who support them are starting to do that too, putting together this reference model and kind of putting together some of these pieces on an ad hoc basis. So that's fun, but a reference model is not that interesting. What's even more interesting is when they become composable piece parts and a set of construction tools that allow the very quick integration of these tools into a composable fabric, and then using that composable fabric to create an enterprise platform, if you will. This represents an opportunity for CSPs, for the operators, web scalers, the systems integrators, and the vendors. We'll see how far they go. We'll see how far these operators reach out and try and grab some of these functions, providing not just the communications piece, but maybe even through service chaining, or even more, being able to do the compute functions, being able to do the generic functions also. We certainly knew the number of web scalers going after this business. Some of the systems integrators are going after this business. And we expect that some of the operators will be at least experimenting with this, and we'll see how far they begin to push it. I think it's going to be a very interesting world in the future. It's going to democratize. We're going to have enterprise digital enablement for all of these different industries. And this is one vision of the future of how we think this might happen. I thank you very much, PJ, and I thank you. We may be done right now, not sure. But if we're not, I would say give us a call. We'd be happy to chat about all of this. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mark. And if anybody's got any questions for Mark, please do put them in the Q&A function on Mark's session. Mark, will you be online at any point today?
Yes, I will. I'll be on all day today. Thank you.
Fantastic. So Mark will be available to answer those.